Hey everyone! Today I'm doing a redraw of an old piece that I found on my DeviantArt account, which I recently decided to log into. This artwork is from around May of 2012, and honestly, I had a lot of fun redrawing it, so I might do this again later just because I have a whole lot of stuff in DeviantArt that would do well with a whole lot of redrawing. I think I could do some interesting redesigns because there's a lot of stuff in there that is not quite as much the kind of stuff that I draw today, so I think it'd be fun to do. Anyway, so the original piece that I did for this was a heavily manga anime art style inspired girl in a forest. Admittedly, I didn't have very much of an explicit anime middle school art phase that I feel like a lot of artists did. Mine was kind of shorter and weirder, mostly because I really liked the anime art style at the time, but that was also before I watched any anime, really. I mean, I watched like some like Pokemon and Digimon and stuff, but I wasn't like full on watching everything like I feel like a lot of people were at that point. And so, for the most part, with this redraw, I tried to keep it in the spirit of the original. There were a few things that I decided to change, like I did alter her pose a little bit. Some of the colors in the original were way too saturated, so I toned those down a little. I played around with the lighting a bit more to go with the forest background and to actually make sure she looked more grounded, because in the original she was kind of more floating in a forest than standing in one. I remember that when I drew the original, it was shortly after I looked at a bunch of art tutorials. This was something I found myself doing quite a bit back in the day, where I would just go on DeviantArt and look at tutorials for like 2 days straight and then just see how that would affect my art. I do think that kind of thing was good for me, and it really did help me find an art style, because it was just being able to pick and choose from a lot of different things versus trying to just copy one thing directly. So for this one, I remember that two of the tutorials specifically that I remember and still kind of use the knowledge from to this day were the ones with the ruffles on the front of her dress, as well as the hair coloring. And because those ones stuck with me so much, I wanted to try and keep them close to that with the redraw. Another thing with the original is that I did intend her to be used as a character, but I never really wound up using her for anything. I remember when I was younger, I would just make characters like constantly on a regular basis, like every day was some new OC. So I feel like there is a lot of characters that maybe didn't get a lot of attention because I kind of just made them once and were just like, okay, here's their whole story, and then never did anything with it. Something else I did want to talk about with the original is just a lot of times older artwork gets bashed on for redraws, and I will of course bash on this forever. But I wanted to just give it some credit too, because, you know, it's got a background that was pretty impressive for the time. I still don't draw backgrounds very much, so still shout out to me for that. And I can also tell that I tried pretty hard on the clothes as well, because it's not really so much one of my default kind of outfits, because I feel like sometimes I am the person who just draws, here's my character in a t-shirt, here's my character in a tank top, here's my character in a hoodie, just so that's not something you have to think about as much. So I can tell with this one that I did think about it a lot while I was drawing, and I think it definitely shows, even if the anatomy is a little subpar. And yeah, I think with the redraw, I did have a lot of fun doing this, just because a lot of those details are not like quite the same way that I would make a choice, because I don't know if I draw outfits quite like that, and I think it's an interesting choice that she's wearing that kind of outfit, but the background is like a forest rather than a city. And I feel like I, these days, just gravitate towards mostly just drawing my OCs, which I know she technically is an OC, but I more gravitate towards drawing the same characters over and over and over. And part of the reason why I wanted to do this redraw initially was to break away from that a little bit, because I feel like I need to draw more than just like the same few people all the time. And of course, there is the comparison between the new art and the old art. Of course, I feel like I've definitely gotten better since then, and that's just what comes with practice and time. But something I really like with redraws, other than seeing how far you've gotten, is it helps you realize that there's still further to go, and not in a bad way. Because I feel like for a lot of people, improvement is kind of daunting because you're never where you really want to be. But I feel like something that's important to do is to recognize that you're always getting better, and that's a good thing. If you were at a point where you no longer wanted to get better, then that kind of takes the fun out of it, I think. And so it's kind of exciting to just think about, if this is a difference between how many years? This is like a 6 years difference. Then how far is it going to be? How good am I going to be like 6 years from now still? So, and of course, not only have I improved over the last however many years, of course, I'm not the only one who's improved. Looking back on the DeviantArt account, of course, I did decide to just check in on some people who I followed on there, and a lot of them are just amazing. Like, of course, I loved them to begin with back when I was on DeviantArt all the time, but seeing how there's a lot of people who were around my age and, they were drawing their warrior cats in MS Paint, and now they have, like, these beautiful art styles, and I'm really just proud of them. Even if I haven't really talked to them over the last 5 years, I'm still proud of them for how far they've come. And I think that's about all I have to say here. Of course, feel free to give any input, any thoughts on your own art, any thoughts on this art. Start up some kind of discussion in the comments. And of course, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you all next time.